Okay, I'm back with a quick review of Africa, the old books and the new book, or the old book and the new books. Um, One thing that people were upset with was that you don't have all the things that are in these books. But the method to their madness is that they're just doing the Africa, the Western Desert. They're not doing Algeria yet, or Tunisia, or Italy, which is a lot of confusion. So basically, what they're doing is they're just looking at the part that has to do with Africa. And if you look at it, there still is a tiger tank, even though people were saying, well, the tiger tank wasn't there. That's true. I mean, they do have it southern Tunisia. I guess they're going to. But they basically just looked at this list right here. And you could see that except for the rockets, um, and then a little bit of the infantry like Fallschirmjägers or Italian. The Italian can get later. Fallschirmjäger you might be able to get later. But and the Pioneers are a card. But all this is in this list right here. You got the tank formations and then all the support exactly like this list. You also have the infantry, which is also very similar to the infantry that's on here. You notice that they have the Pak 38s already built in, whereas in this one you have to get the Pak 38s on a separate unit, but it's still within the formation. Moving ahead, you can see that there's a couple of units that are missing. Maybe they're a little redundant, so they're taken out. Pioneer is actually a card in the deck. The Recon is a card that you can add to your formations. Not in the book, but if you get the box of cards, it's in there. And then all this stuff is pretty much what you see in the book. And people, the rockets aren't there. That's the only thing that's really different. So then people start looking at this. Well, you got the Fallschirmjägers and all this other stuff in here. But that's where this book ends. It ends on after that initial part of the Africa, and that's all that they're working with right now to try to simplify the game. Before I get there, let's look at the cards. So you see here, you got the Pioneer Company. For 1 point, you can use it on your Africa Rifle Company to get this Pioneer Company. You have the Armored Car Company that takes the place, let me get to the page here, right here. Armored Car is this card right here that you can buy in that pack. And you have your soft skin transports that you can add these trucks that are missing to your force. And then you've got the two leaders, Riedmeier and Rommel, that are not in the book, but are at the front of this one right here. You get Rommel and Riedmeier. Let's see, there's another leader. Yeah, you got these other guys, but these are Fallschirmjägers, so I expect that they'll be when the Fallschirmjägers come out in a separate book. So that's how they did the Germans, and it is fairly complete. It's surprisingly complete. Of course, there's a couple things missing. So let's take a look at it. A little bit more complicated, because you've got one awesome thing about the British in this old book is that you had all these different countries and different units with different abilities working in the Africa. And if you look at this book here, it doesn't have that. So what you have to look at this as, it's basically 8th Army. You got the 8th Army armor, and then just the regular troops. Now you've got guards here, which is actually represented by this card. So technically they're there. They're not in the book, but if you have the card, you can get an ability. The Indians are represented here with another card. A little bit more lame in this sense. Yeah, this is sort of in there, New Zealand, but that really doesn't make it much New Zealand. And then the Australian Divisional Cavalry, so they're kind of represented there as well. So you do have not quite the diversity that this book has, but it is pretty much there. Now if you look at, again, we're just looking at the Africa part of this British book, it is pretty close to what you see in this book. They don't have the Shermans, and I'm assuming that the Shermans were up in Tunisia, but they're focused on what was in the Western Desert with the Grants. And then if you look here, you have the Crusaders, And, you know, of course, you have Honey Stewart's, so that takes care of these two boxes right here. And then you have Infantry Tank Company, that's missing. That's not in there, and I think that some people do have a legitimate beef, you know, what's this, but they wanted to make a cut, and that's what they did. Now, another cut that they made, people, look here, you got the Motor Company, but the Motor Company really is not, I mean, if you look at it, it's not the same force structure as what's in here. If you look at the infantry force structure, you have platoons, carriers, which this one does have, but you have the machine guns that are in there. You can have Indian, but if you look at what's in there, you have the anti-tank rifle and the little mortar. And here you do have a mortar, and you have a bunch of anti-tank rifle teams, and even smaller amount. You have 4, which does correspond to what you have here. However, if you look at the infantry list, which is right here, the Rifle Company, it is very similar, except you just take these guys out. Okay, so I don't know if you think that this is more similar to this or the actual Motor Company. The Motor Company, I guess, you know, yeah, you do have 4, so that's almost exactly, except you've got extra anti-tank rifles instead of just 1. You can have, or 1, you can, or 0 actually. You could have 3, up to 3, whereas this one they give you 1. No questions asked. You have to take it. So maybe it's the infantry that's taken out, you know, upon second review. Yeah, I would say so, because you have to have the scouts, which is in this motor platoon. That has to go in there. Otherwise, the range of units is very similar to what you've seen here. They really didn't take out all that much. The Rifle Company is not there, but you know, you see the mortars, the machine guns are in there, transports, which you could use a card. So you've got the soft skin transports. That's a card in there, and then you've got the Armored Car Squadron, which is represented by this card here, so you can get that force in there. And then this one back here that I kind of glanced over, the Cavalry Squadron, is represented by the New Zealand and the Australian Divisional Cavalry. So the cards cover a lot that was not in this book. You can see that the, you know, you got the Bofors, and even something that surprised me was, where is it? There were 17 pounders. You know, people were saying that the 17 pounders were not in the Western Desert, and that's true. I mean, I'm not arguing that or anything like that. But if you look over here, you've got 17 pounders. So they're in the Africa part of the section. So they basically just took the Africa part of the of what was going on here and just translated into these 2 books. So it's not as unreasonable, I think, as some people are looking at it. You know, if you combine the cards and the books, you get quite a bit of what is going on in this just awesome book. This was the first book that I ever got, and I loved it. And you got Pip Roberts, and you got the card here for Pip Roberts. And you've got, let's see, Upham, Young, they're not in there, probably because of infantry, but you do have John Curry. So, yeah, so I think they did a good job in translating what's here, keeping it simple and breaking it down to a smaller amount, because the Western Desert does get lost in this book, because why would you go for these kinds of companies over here with weaker tanks, or even, you know, the Grant. I don't know why you buy a Grant when you can get a beautiful Sherman. So the Shermans are not there really until Tunisia and Italy, and so I think they're trying to reflect that here, as well as making as well as making it more simple for people to get into. Okay, now for my prediction of Americans. I believe there's going to be a tank company. I believe they're going to do the armored rifle, at least without transports, dismounted or whatever, and then maybe add the transports later. And then, but I think they're going to have those in there. I think the Armored Recon's going to be a card in the deck, and then just a regular rifle company. I don't. Maybe the Rangers will probably be a card as well, and I don't think that they're going to put airborne troops in at all. So I think they're going to cut that out. Those are the only companies that are in this book, but they're going to focus on the armor and the rifle company, I think. Armored company, I'm guessing, is going to be in there. Now, the only way that I think that they can get around that is if they just do a limited tank company where they take out the Shermans like they did with the British. You know, get Grants in there because, like I said before, Grants weren't too much in there. Armored company, armored rifle. I'm thinking maybe we'll see our first mechanized unit, at the very least, with the cards in there, and then this will be a card, and then I believe that the rifle company will be another force or another formation that you can use, where the Rangers and the Rangers will be a card, and the parachute troops will not be in the new American book that's supposed to come out in September. Thanks for watching, and one other prediction that I have for the Americans, I don't think that they're going to have priests, and I don't think they're going to have Wolverines. I think they're going to have the whatchamacallit, they're like they're the half tracks. See the 105 self-propelled. I think they'll have that, as well as the tank destroyer. That they'll have the half tracks with those. They will not have the M10s, and I don't think they'll have the priests. So that's my prediction, that these guys will be gone, and these guys will not be in there. I think you'll have the M3 75mm tank destroyers for the Americans. I think that's going to be the big thing. You will see the 105s, but you won't see the 155s. That's how I think they're going to limit it. And then when we get here, I'm guessing, I don't know if they're going to pick one of these planes. You know what? I'm going to go with the Warhawk, simply because I think the Lightning's going to show up in Pacific books later, so they're going to stick with the Warhawk. So those are my predictions. Thanks for watching. This is now the end of the video. Thanks.